Judicial Service Commission will not take against them before they have made considerable money and assisted crooks to acquire other people's property. In fact, I thought that my brother here, Nelson Havi, was talking about my client because I have had lost 3 cases before the same judge, and they wanted to become wealthy, and so that's what we want to stop. However, we are taking up the matter with the relevant authorities. We are aware of the cases of holders of fake titles who have evicted owners of properties who have been kept out of their property for 2 or more years. I've had 2 cases of owners of land being removed from their land when they are holding titles. Yeah, following fake court orders. And that's really not fiction. You can imagine having a valid title, being in possession of land for over 24 years, and the crook comes and chases you when your title deed is still in your pocket. It is a tribute to our judicial system that such people have been able to return to their properties. We know of others who are fighting cat and mouse games with the crooks, and police are not doing enough to protect our owners of properties. It is virtually impossible to kick out the arrogant and land grabbers who disobey court orders with impunity. Our courts are yet to obtain, as did the Supreme Court did in USA, an order executed by the federal military to force university students to admit African Americans to classrooms. This invasion of homes and farms must stop. If the police are not capable of enforcing court orders, it is high time the president asked the army to be mobilized to make the title deed what it is. President Eisenhower sent the federal military to the state of Kansas to ensure that black girls and boys who had been kept from white universities went to school. Abraham Lincoln is credited in our constitutional law with having used the military to defend the Constitution. When the southern states decided to overthrow the Constitution, Abraham Lincoln said the Constitution was made to be eternal, and any person who set out to overthrow the Constitution would have the full force of the military of the USA behind it to defend the Constitution. We now know from our study of law, philosophy, and mankind's history that states that that human beings must grow from childhood and adulthood, and pain comes in the course of growth. This will happen with our republic. We also know from the same that there are ways of avoiding the pain. We now give 3 illustrations from Greece, ancient Rome, and USA of the 20th century. We give we give this because human nature does not change throughout the ages, and hasten to add that human beings are capable of learning from good governance practices from other parts of the world. The first one is Plato's Crito, titled Crito in the Dialogue Plato. The latter describes how Socrates was sentenced to death through an unfair trial and executed in 399 BC. And he refused assistance of people who bribed everyone in Greece to secure his release. Socrates was in a cell awaiting death, and the people told him happily, Socrates, you can't die here. We have bribed everyone that needs to be bribed in Greece. We are going to walk you out to safety. And Socrates, no. I can't run away from the law. Now, the second illustration comes from the selected works of Cicero, who described how great corruption operates each organization room. The practitioner of good corruption sees enough to bribe every institution of state. Everyone who is involved in great corruption says that he must steal enough man to bribe the police, the parliament, the judges, everybody. And the golden bag is a Kenyan example. It is still open the same in the third decision from USA, whose Supreme Court in Upstate of the United States, just brothers of that court give memorable advice to governments all over the world, although what he said pertained to America of his day, but is of general application. He said, "Our governments is the potent, the omnipresent teacher. For good, for ill, it teaches the whole people by its example. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law to himself. It invites anarchy. To declare that in the administration of criminal law, they justify the means. To declare that the government may commit offenses in order to secure the conviction of crime would bring terrible retribution. Against that pernicious doctrine, this court should resolutely said." In other words, where our bad advocates and bad judicial officers getting examples from? When one is admitted as an advocate of the High Court to practice law, he or she takes an oath to assist in the administration of justice without fear or favor. He or she, as Lord Macmillan had declared, owes 5 duties, namely to his client, to his opponent, to the court, to himself, and to the state. In the present-day Kenya, some judicial officers, advocates, and court staff only recognize duty to themselves. Any advocate or judicial officer who engages in corruption violates his duty to the state to ensure that Kenya remains as stated in Article 44 of the Constitution, a multi-part democracy, state founded on the national values and principles of government, referred to in Article 10, patriotism, national duty, sharing and devolution power, rule of law, democracy, participation of the people, human dignity, equity, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination, protection of the marginalized, good governance, integrity, transparency, accountability, and sustainability. The participants in corruption in justice organ of in the justice organs, as far as the courts are concerned, are judicial officers, advocates of the High Court, deputy registrars, executive officers, and court clerks. All work together when somebody is deprived of his investment. That is the cartel. To be a member of the bar is to be under duty to do his or her part as a member of the recognized bar. To the words of Chief Justice Vanderbilt of the Supreme Court of New Jersey, to improve his profession. The courts of the law, the Supreme Court in its decision of 2017, Presidential Petition Number 1, Raila Amolo Odinga vs. another, vs. Independent Electoral Commission, in which it nullified the election of President Uhuru, made this sterling decision and underlined what Plato in Crito and Justice Bryden said about the importance of the rule of law. It is stated as follows at paragraphs 394 and 95. It is also our view that the greatest of our nation lies not in the might or its armies, important as that is, not in the largeness of its economy, important as that is. The greatest of our nation lies in the fidelity to the Constitution and the strict adherence to the rule of law, and above all, the fear of God. The rule of law ensures that society is governed on the basis of rules and not the might of force. It provides a framework for orderly and objective relationship between citizens in a country. In the Kenya context, it is underpinned by the Constitution. As Surabji, former Attorney General, wrote, the rule of law is the heritage of mankind and a salutary reminder that when law ends, tyranny begins. Do you need to go further and ask, why are farms being invaded? Why are homes being invaded with impunity? It is because anarchy is knocking at our door, and that we must prevent from happening further. I should remind that cast the rule of law to the dogs. Lutisom survey once observed, as government becomes as government of men. History has shown, as Ahmednasir, that even in the best rulers have fallen prey to the cruel desires of naked power, and that relies on the goodwill of the politicians is often as risky as good thing. Luther said, rule of law, legitimate governance, and development of the Pacific. The moment we ignore our constitution, the Kenya we fought for will lose it. We are on the verge of losing our country. The stage has been reached when the cancer of our justice system must be uprooted. This is really the theme of this press conference. The stage has been reached when the cancer of our justice must be uprooted through the exercise by the members of the bar at Article 251 of the Constitution and the Advocates Act to seek a removal from the Judicial Service Commission both corrupt and incompetent judicial officers and also such members of the Judicial Service Commission who are not discharging their constitutional duties under the Constitution, and from the roll of advocates, all those who have betrayed the oath of office. We are therefore putting on notice that we shall be inviting support of all those advocates and patriotic Kenyans who share our view to join us in making our justice system work better than it is doing now. We realize that this is just a small task in making our democracy work. Since 1950s, when the Kenyans took up against the colonial rule, Kenyans have told others who love democracy that we cherish it. It is worthy of note that Kenyans were the first people in the African continent to take up arms against the colonial rulers, like the Americans did after 1776, and when a declaration of independence was made, and also the Irish. In other words, the message we are saying, as some of the senior counsel, we said, no, we are going to do something about corruption in the justice system. And we are, as we go to the next page to say, we are going to ask Kenyans and lawyers to contribute to a data bank of wrongdoing. And that data bank will be established in the Office of the Law Society. Through this statement, we are calling upon advocates and members of the public to say to the President of the Law Society their experience in the wheels of justice, even and all evidence of wrongdoing, be it incompetence or corruption, which are available under both Article 251 of the Constitution and the Advocates Act. The Law Society will establish a data bank which is going to be used in cleaning up the organs of justice in a republic. We shall not allow our nation to go under, as happened in the less happy nations of Africa. As it is evident from this statement, we are much interested in justice because of the challenges posed to our health, to the livelihood of Kenyans, and a determination to ensure that our country remains one of the leading democracies in Africa and the world. God bless Kenya. God bless Africa. I'm saying, I'm tired of being occupied 24 hours in assisting somebody to defend his title, to get court orders which are not obeyed. We must take action. Now, we shall be happy to take questions from you.
All right. My name is Charles Adinda from the Silly Voice. You have I think your statement has been quite general. Yet, I think Senior Counsel Abdullahi has actually been putting a lot of pressure on the Chief Justice, Koome, with regard to issues in the judiciary. So, are there any specific judges that you want to put on notice who have actually been in the system? That's actually one of my questions. I'll
put one question, then my brothers will also answer. In law, we are required to follow the law in solving problems. When you have problems as judicial officer, whether a magistrate or a judge, you file a petition in the Judicial Service Commission. That's the first place of call. But the second point is also, your mention is important, but as you can see from our statement, we are calling for establishment of a data bank because we want to collect evidence, and so we have said we can give examples, but rule of law requires, if I can say, you might have heard from, even not where from, that the lawyer can be devil's advocate. What this means is that we know that from a Christian background, it is devil, it's Satan who causes things. But there may be things the devil has not done. So the advocate must be made available because the Satan might say, okay, it's true, actually I'm a criminal, but I can tell you I'm not the one who did this one. So we have to give the people who are wronging Kenyans a chance to defend themselves. So we cannot name them.
Just to add, I think you rightly say this statement is very general. I think it's the beginning of a long journey that we want to undertake as both the senior bar and former chairman of the Law Society. We have started the first step, to say that there's a problem in the justice sector. We are using the issue of title just as an example. I mean, it could apply to another case. It could apply to children's case. It could apply to a commercial matter. But I think Kenyans relate more to the issue of a title, and that's why we are giving it as an example. And I think the other thing we're saying is that let us collect this data of all this malfeasance, all this corruption, all this. Once we have this data, the next logical steps, I think, we will share with Kenyans on how we'll move forward. But this is the baby step we are taking today, and I think this is the foundation that we recognize as former chairman of Law Society and lawyers who have practiced, for so many years, that we are at a critical juncture. I mean, there's a big problem facing our judiciary. I mean, there's impunity, there's corruption, all these issues. But we are not naming like I normally do that so and so is resigning. That's my own personal views. But you follow our steps and our progress as we go to 2025.
My question is to...
Bigger than that. It is bigger in that we are saying that there are incompetent and others corrupt people, and they should be dealt with in accordance with the law. All we are saying is that we are calling upon Kenyans and advocates to contribute to data, because the Judicial Service Commission has power to remove anyone acting wrongly from office. But as you find our statement, we are not sparing our own. Under the Advocates Act, the Disciplinary Committee of the Law Society has power to remove from the advocates who have acted improperly. And I'm saying either incompetence or through corruption, the advocates involved, their court clerks involved, and all of them must be tackled. But I want to emphasize a point that is emphasized in a statement but not come from you. We recognize that Kenya is blessed with some very fine judges, the equal of any in the world. We have got very good magistrates. We also have got very good advocates and magistrates. So, in our statement, we commend those we do right things, whether they are judges, magistrates, or advocates. But those who fall of the law are the ones we are declaring, or we are putting a notice to, that the time has come. 2024 is the last year that they are going to take on, because we want the full force of law from starting from 1st January 2025, whoever is airing should look for another career.
Absolutely. I think Gibson couldn't put it better, really. That you see the rot in the judiciary. I mean, the stench is too much. People have lost properties. People have lost livelihoods. People have lost all kind of things. We have been quiet for so long. But as Gibson rightly says, we are saying enough is enough. 2024 December, which I think has 11 more days, is the end of this enterprise. From 2025 January, we will now start a crusade on how to clean the judiciary in light of what we hope our members will bring to the table.
So the question is, why now? We have had former chief justices, we have Maraga, CJ Maraga, we had the others. Why are you coming out now to say these things? Have they recent? The levels recent? Were they there before? Why now?
You know, I mean, if you know the history of law society or the history of the justice sector, that question of why now is not true. It has always been there. If you look at Willie Mutunga had faced petitions to remove him. I think there were about 5, 6, 7. Every month there was someone who used to bring a petition to remove him. And the JCU dealt with them. I mean, the same with Maraga. People have told him to resign. There were petitions for his removal. In fact, the current CJ has not faced, I think only one petition has been filed against her. But also, if you look at the history of agitation by the law society, I mean, there is no chief justice we have not agitated from. I was in the council when we called for the resignation of Bernard Chunga.
And he did go home, actually.
Yes, he go home. Gibson was in that tribunal that was formed. If you look at Chisoni, if you look at Hancock's, I mean, Hancock's was Paul Muite's time, and Paul, so many times he resigns. I mean, there is no chief justice that had easy time with the law society because, you know, they represent the state, they represent other diverse interests. As lawyers, we always have grievances against the courts. We want the courts to work more efficiently, more transparently. So the law society always, although I'm not speaking for the law society now, the law society has a history of being the watchman of the Kenyan people when it comes to the judiciary. And we are supplementing that process.
And let me add one thing. You in the press are even better placed than anybody else. Just ask yourself, have you ever reported as many issues of invasions of homes, houses, of the kind that you have seen over the last few years? We are saying we have now reached a crisis position. That's why we are saying we have never had this kind of situation that we are talking about. I've never had a situation where I have to assess clients in need because their properties are threatened with being sold by crooks.
Let me just paint a picture here. Figure a situation whereby somebody comes to complain to you. And that somebody is none other than Ahmednasir Abdullahi, Dr. Gibson Kamau Kuria, or Nelson Havi, that a magistrate or a judge has been bribed to rule in a manner that is not inconsistent with the law. These three, or Muite. So if these four can make this lamentation, what about Oyo? What about Ochibaba? What about Ogada? People you do not read of in the newspaper. Are you seeing the magnitude of the problem? That's number one. Number two, and this is our personal opinion, Ahmednasir and I, we must have the Chief Justice resign. Why do we say so? Because the Chief Justice is the head of the Judicial Service Commission. She chairs the Judicial Service Commission. How can she countenance all these complaints? And it's not that she doesn't know about them. She has intelligence. She has an office that's functional. She has evidence of judges who are corrupt. But she's not doing anything. She's doing nothing. And it is for that reason that it cannot be expected of the Judicial Service Commission to take charge of her. And there is precedent to what we are saying. We demanded the resignation of Bernard Chunga, and he indeed did resign. Evans Gisheru was more wiser than all of them. He saw the need to resign rather than continue as a Court of Appeal judge. And that's why we've been emphatic will go for all these judges and will go for the commissioners of the Judicial Service Commission who do not want to do their work. And it's imperative that you, as the press, give momentum to this exercise. You are the light that shines to illuminate the paths, especially when it comes to the rule of law and democracy. And this must be done. It must be done not for us. And let me dissuade those young lawyers who are saying these four are taking up this initiative because they have lost their contacts with the judges they used to bribe. Where? We've made our bonds, and we're doing this for you. We are on the exit. We are leaving this practice of law. And if we don't sanitize this judicial system, it is you who will suffer. And it's therefore incumbent upon you, who constitute the calvary of the legal profession, to come up and support this initiative. Bring complaints. I'm overwhelmed. Like today alone, I have received more than 100 complaints. I have one here about a judge in Kitale. If you read it, you will stop practicing law as an advocate. This, friends, is the problem that is bedeviling us right now. It must be resolved.
I think there's a question around data verification. The fact that you're asking Kenyans to collect data about any injustices. So what process is there then to verify that data so that you can actually prove that it's not a false claim, that it is indeed true that the justice system is actually...
The point is that, in fact, to be a lawyer, one is trained to do three things. One is to understand the law, not only of this country, but the law of the entire world on that particular issue you are dealing with. Secondly, as a lawyer, you are trained to analyze facts because there are people who may wish to deceive you or honestly don't know, are emotional. So the Council of the Law Society is the best privileged institution in the whole republic because the finest lawyers in the country are at their core. If they need any assistance, the Madam President Othiambo just need to call my brothers here. He says, well, we need assistance here. If they require, and of course, these brothers will not send a fee note to the President of the Law Society. Just like you have a bank balance where you withdraw some money. The chairman of the Law Society has a big bank of talent. World-class lawyers are available, just a telephone call between the president and the lawyer. And that will happen. So that what we expect is that the council will form a subcommittee to deal with the issue of advocates and judicial officers and analyze the data which comes to them. And of course, and I can assure you, Kenyans are among the best thinkers in the world. You believe it?
Both Havi and USC Ahmednasir have time and again said that the buck stops with the Chief Justice, Madam Koome, and that you want her out of office. Recently, she also said that she will not resign.
I will dismiss it with the contempt it deserves. But because I'm the youngest, I can speak. Every Kenyan knows the source of this problem is the Chief Justice. And if you are to conduct an opinion poll on your own, you will verify that. It is a choice whether to resign or not, but we have indicated the reasons as to why. It is improbable, it's unreasonable to expect the Judicial Service Commission, which she chairs, to consider a petition for her removal and recommend to the President to form a tribunal. But we have indicated here in no uncertain terms that effective 1st January 2025, if there is any incompetent and corrupt judge, that is their end. How that will be executed is a matter of war. The bomb will be detonated on them.
I think Gibson also, I mean, if you look at Dr. Gibson, I mean, he taught law for all these years. He practiced, I taught law, I practiced this. We can tell you from where we sit that the Kenyan judiciary has never been this corrupt. Yes, that you can take. I mean, it has never been this corrupt. I mean, we had other problems in the 80s and 90s of lack of political independence, some other issues here and there, you know, police brutality, Kanu issues. But you know, this issue of judges taking bribe on a daily basis, on every case they handle. I mean, this is something that has snowballed in the last 10 years. Yes. And that is why people are losing their property. Gibson tells you there is no longer, the rule of law is completely finished. The rule of money reigns supreme. And in Kenya, I can tell you, it doesn't matter the court, the High Court, and especially the High Court, the Magistrate, and the Supreme Court. There is no judgment you cannot buy. And a country cannot survive if the justice system is fueled by money. The country will collapse. And that is why we are now actually making all these cries and noise that as Kenyans, we have to address this problem. The challenge facing the judiciary is the biggest challenge facing Kenya today.
I'd just add what Abdullahi had just reminding him. Socrates got into trouble. The way he has got into trouble. Because of doing what is right. I was detained because of acting for unpopular people. So, the three of us have learned to live with unpopularity when it comes to standing for what is right.
Absolutely.
And with honor.
Yeah.
Maybe
My
just
last
one
question
from
will be,
me.
let me just follow. JSC is a representation of, amongst other people,
Yes.
the Law Society of Kenya, which has 2 representatives, right? Here we have a scenario where you're saying that the commission has failed or has not been processing or has not acted upon issues of corruption. Is it now an indicator that definitely even LSK has failed? And then number 2, it is an issue of the giver and the taker. Here you have an instance where you're talking about an advocate giving bribes. We have the Advocates Complaints Commission, right? Are there any cases that you can actually see we have submitted to LSK regarding these and these advocates for giving bribes to judges and magistrates?
I have 3 answers. My land friends will also now be. I say the answer is the affirmative, but I not give names. But also in the statement we are saying we are going to do more. This is not. We are putting every advocate who is not living according to professional standards. That we shall seek him to be cancelled from row of advocates so that he doesn't have a chance of ruining Kenyans. As regards representatives, I can only say Kenyans have not had the kind of parliament they have until 1988 when we had Mororongo. Isn't it?
Mororongo, yes.
Yeah. So we are saying they have their defenses and they may be good, but I can give example. There are 2 petitions that my clients have filed since March this year with the Judicial Service Commission. And no action has been taken.
Absolutely.
So I'm saying I've got information. I have situations according to the rules of professional ethics. No advocate is allowed to do anything improper because the clients have said it. No matter how much fees he or she is to receive, no matter how clear the instructions are, if it is untrue, if it is for corrupt purposes, the advocates has to say no. I'm a Christian, and I've not met a better man than Joseph in the Old Testament. And you remember, Potiphar's wife wanted to be with him. He said, you belong to Potiphar. Client's money belongs to property. Other people's property belongs to them. You, advocate, must not assist in the theft of other people's property. You, our judicial officer, we must learn to respect properties of others and the dignity of others.
Now, let me add you one question. You see, I was a member of the Judicial Service Commission for 2 years, the formative part. And the Judicial Service Commission has, there's a statute, there's the constitution that states how a judge should be removed. When Mother Koome came to office, she made a policy decision that, that judges, can be removed either on corruption or incompetence. It's in the constitution, the word incompetence. And incompetence is, for example, if a judge is told to make a determination on how many sun do we have on the sky, and the judge says there are 3 sun. That one, you don't need any other decision. You know that judge is incompetent. Judges have been making ridiculous decisions like there are 3 sun in the skies. And when you make a complaint, Mother Koome has brought a rule that is now a decisional independence. One is a judge makes a decision, no matter how ridiculous it is. And we have complained. Our clients have complained. She will say that, no, you can't touch them because it's a decision they have made. In other words, she has legitimized the corruption through judgment and given them impunity. That is why, how many complaints do Kenyans make? Thousands. Ask Havi, ask Dr. Korea, myself, we make complaints. They will just, if you are lucky, sometimes you are not even lucky. If you are lucky, they will just send you, they say that your complaint is based on a judgment of the court, there's decisional independence. What of incompetence? The Constitution says you can remove someone on incompetence. But she is protecting judges. That is why, this desperation of lawyers and clients now is that we have to take this argument to another level. We have, Judicial Service Commission is no longer an option because Mother has made it, a club that protects judges. That is why we are looking for now evidence. That is now we will go frontal attack on the judiciary because, we can't get justice through the Judicial Service Commission.
There's a question that you've not answered about.
Which one?
LSK representatives before the JSE. You have 2 representatives.
Yes.
Is it a failure then on LSK? Because I believe you elected them to be representatives before the JSE.
You see, it's true. I think the commission has 11 members.
Yes.
11 members. 2 are, most of them are appointed by government. I tell guys, the only serious democratic elected are the members of the law society, the representatives. The other guys, some are elected by 7 people, like the Supreme Court judge. It's 7 members elected. Actually, it's 6. So 7. So it's true. That should be our voice. And of course, it depends on the person, who is your representative. When I was there, people used to think I used to run the JSC because for me, my constituency is the most important one. I speak for my constituency and their clients they represent. So if there is something like this, if there is an issue like this, and look at how many judges, I was there for 2 years, but go and see how many tribunals that were formed during the early years of the JSC. We removed a deputy chief justice, we removed 2 judges of the Supreme Court, we removed 2 judges of the Supreme Court, Justice Tanoi and Rawal. All those were, we had so many complaints against the Supreme Court itself, those the other members. So of course everything depends on members. Some members are robust, some members are not very robust. Some members are very assertive, some are not. But it is true, our members, you know, should spearhead. I'm told now, from what I hear, I think last week they had a meeting with the JC. They have forced them on a way, you know, on a program to undertake. But there's a, you know, the dominant party in the JC are judges and magistrates. Yeah. High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, magistrate, the Chief Justice, and they are very, very protective of their staff. They are very protective of their members. But still, that shouldn't be really the issue, because the law is the law. Corruption in the judiciary now is the worst thing facing this country. You guys talk about taxes and all these things. Compared to tax, compared to the issues we have against the government, which are legitimate, corruption in the judiciary is destroyed in this country. And very soon, unless we address it, we will not have a country. Because there's no law. If the rule of law breaks, where will you go? Nowhere.
Former Chief Justice Willie Mutunga raised this issue recently of where decisions are made by the High Court, upheld by the Court of Appeal, and then overturned by the Supreme Court. Is this normal, or is this another indicator of what you are raising today?
I think there are two answers, and Manfred will also make a contribution. The three of us, you can accept from me, we have learned all about judicials in the whole world. And it is true that there comes in the time of, in history, when the judges make a wrong decision. I'll just give two illustrations, or three illustrations, one from Kenya, and one from USA, and one from United Kingdom. In 1857, the US Supreme Court held that black people are property, not human beings. And that justified mistreatment of African Americans. In 1987, the same Supreme Court said that African Americans and white Americans should not travel in the same train. It remained that in 1954, when the same Supreme Court said that having separate education for African Americans from that of whites is inherently unconstitutional and a denial of equal protection of laws. So in 1954, the Supreme Court went the full circle. It had made an error. In 1941, the top court in U.S., like equivalent of U.S. Supreme Court, the House of Lords, was faced with a person detained without trial, like I was detained. And when he asked, he said that I want to know why I've been detained. The judges did not want to ask that question be asked because the executive has said was a bad man. And so, this bad man, there was one judge called Lord Atkin. He said, and the fellow judges were very uncomfortable. He said, I'm actually surprised that I see people who think like the executive government. And he said the language of law, of liberty, is the same during the wartime and peacetime. So there are times when judges make mistakes. But now go to a judgment of Supreme Court. A Supreme Court. Article 34 of our Constitution is derived from the German Constitution, which was included to protect Germany from manipulators of information, the way Hitler did. And the Supreme Court took a position that supports a Hitler. And I paid price for pointing out that fact. I was telling Abdai the price I've been paying because of pointing out that I don't practice in that court.
The Kenyan Supreme Court?
Yeah.
You don't practice there.
No, I say that everything I say is rejected. My applications to appeal never. I haven't succeeded.
That makes the three of us. Anyway.
That's good.
You don't attach your application with a bag of money.
But let me emphasize what I said. Kenya has fine men and women, and now let's never forget. We have some of the finest human beings, including you. But we are putting on notice on our brothers and sisters. They are not brothers and sisters if they are helping in stealing our property. You don't steal the property of anybody, let alone that of a brother or sister.
Let me say something so that we get the perspective of what Dr. Willie Mutunga spoke about. There are problems with the Supreme Court which are inherent. And this, Ahmed and I have emphasized time without number. The Supreme Court was not intended to determine disputes over contract. No.
Or lawyers' fees.
Or lawyers' fees, taxation of bills of cost. So when this happens, money has changed hands. And that is fact. Don't ask us for evidence. If a judge tells you we have 3 sons instead of 1 son, see Mutoto Akiume, the son, Jua. The judge has said we have 3 sons. What evidence do you need?
There are many times they have said, eh?
And they say this every day. You understand? So that is our problem with the Supreme Court. Our other problem with judges and magistrates are these magistrates and judges who say, I have seen what the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal have said about the sanctity of title and the priority of title. But in the interest of justice and taking into account the dominant cause doctrine, who the hell are you? Are you suggesting some of us didn't go to school? We know what Jela Kasman says. We know what Rek Moto says. We know what Taj Mahal says. It's quite clear. It's tight law. So that what these judges do, they collect money and they go and conceptualize theories that are non-existent in law to make some of us who are extremely learned look foolish before our clients. We will not countenance that. That is corruption. It's incompetence. And we're going to deal with it.
I just add what my brother had said here. See, according to law, we follow what in the military is called the hierarchy of authority. If the chief of staff gives orders to his junior, they can't ask the merit of that decision. They must carry it out. Because there has to be order in our armed forces. You can't have somebody who is questioning the chief of staff. Now, the law works in the same way. First of all, the law, the Constitution, and Acts of Parliament are like the commander. No judge has power to disagree with the Constitution or Act of Parliament because the people made the Constitution and requested you to interpret it on their behalf. They didn't ask you to make it, so you don't call them stupid. The Parliament is created to make laws. You don't call Parliament stupid. But you have situations where the judges don't want to respect the Constitution.
Absolutely.
They don't want to respect Acts of Parliament. And coming to this hierarchy of authorities, according to our law, all the judges, of course, Supreme Court must apply the Constitution and all laws. All the Court of Appeal judges must apply the law as stated by the Supreme Court. You don't, even if you think they were wrong, if you think you're in a military thing that chief of staff is wrong, you don't depart from what you've been ordered. So you have had a situation where High Court judges have no respect for what the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court say. That invites anarchy.
Complete. So you guys, I think it is Friday.
We are
Yeah,
going
going
to
to
give
the
you.
mosque.
Let's. What we do is that.
We can give you copies.